Hello, Oracles. My goodness, Tesla pulling back 5%. We're going to go over why we think that it's pulled back 5%, but we know most of you out there are long-term shareholders, so it's really the fundamentals that truly matter in this case. And the fundamentals are we are seeing amazing production coming out of Giga Shanghai. So we're going to discuss that, and it's something that we had talked about previously from rumors that we had heard about what production for the Model 3 Highland was going to be looking like. Looks like that is turning out to be true. So we're going to get into all of those numbers, some other information about Giga Mexico, Giga Berlin, and why the stock pulled back 5%. We'll discuss that in just a minute. All right, so looking at the charts today, again, down 5.46%, closing at 209.98 on the day. Now, we looked at this bounce here that we got. We went just below 200, bounced up strong, had a little bit of a gap up here. Now, this gap has been filled. So I know I haven't made a video in a few days, so we know we didn't discuss this gap that was created last week. So we had that gap. That gap has now been filled mostly. It goes down to 205.99. So that may be something we fill tomorrow morning and then bounce off of that. So the questions are, where do we go from here? Now we do have the gap above us that goes to 248, the big gap above there at 280, and then we do have gaps below down at 200. Now last week we did pop up, but we kind of hit this wall around that 220 mark. Now that in the past did serve as a good support. Now it's acting as that resistance that we're going to need to break through. So the question is, are we going to break through that, or are we going to continue falling further? Now below us here, we do have that very strong support at 200. We broke that for one day and then ended up coming right back above it shortly thereafter. So again, nobody knows where we're going to go for sure. We're still around 38 for the RSI, so not oversold, but pushing back down in that direction. So now we just pay attention to where we're going to go from here. So now to potentially explain this 5% pullback, Gary Black posts out, new Tesla research initiated by HSBC with the equivalent of a sell rating getting blamed for Tesla's 5% decline today. Most bearish part is his $146 price target, of which 40% comes from FSD, Dojo, and Optimus, which leaves just $90 per share in value for the traditional EV business. For reference, we put $300 in value on the EV business based on a 2030 EPS of $22, a 30 times PE, and a 13.1% cost of equity. Now, just a reminder that $146 price target is a big gap to fill down below us. Analyst Michael Tyndall says his valuation is 50% DCF and 50% based on global tech multiples. Without seeing his analysis, we can't poke holes in it, but our bet is Analyst Tyndall is assigning a multiple based on the tech category rather than his projected growth rate. If so, that isn't consistent with financial theory. We'll try to get a copy of the full report. So now this is important, and again, I never like to look at analyst price targets, things like that, because they change them all the time. They're looking out 12 months, whereas many people are looking out longer. You look at Gary Black, he's looking out 10 years himself, but he understands that Wall Street is looking out the next 12 months based upon what is the company actually going to be doing in the next 12 months. So that's why analyst price targets are very hard to go by. So in my opinion, if we see a pullback like this, based upon analyst price targets and research, really doesn't mean anything. Could mean actually a good buying opportunity. Nobody knows for sure. Again, we may fall further from here. I do see that gap down below at 146 as being a potential to fill, especially if the macro environment gets extremely ugly next year. But in the near term, we have a lot of positive catalysts going on. Again, we've got the Cybertruck event on November 30th. We're going to be seeing the EV tax credit coming off at the time of purchase in January. That may end up boosting sales up. And we've got some amazing production numbers coming out of Shanghai. And we've got Troy Teslike posting out, Model 3 production at Giga Shanghai in October was 28,000. That's excellent and 8,000 higher than I expected. This could mean more exports for Q1, or it could mean more China sales in Q4. Ideally, the next weekly insurance number should be at least 16,100 in total, with 5,500 plus Model 3s. So now when we first heard about Giga Shanghai producing this Model 3 Highland back in that August timeframe, we got some numbers coming out in September, and the discussion was that we were going to be seeing 120% production coming out of Shanghai for October, and then pushing up from there as well. So it looks like that is starting to come to fruition and actually be true. Now, that 120% is based upon the numbers that we had seen for the Model 3 prior to the shutdown for the upgrade. So now, if this does continue, again, as Troy said, we don't know for sure if Tesla is going to be pushing those deliveries out to be in Q4 or if we're going to see a big bump coming in Q1 of next year. But seeing that production ramping and knowing that we've heard a lot of significant demand coming for this Model 3 Highland, that's going to boost some numbers up significantly. So we're going to pay attention to this as the quarter rolls on. But again, when you're looking long term, this is a cost cutting production vehicle here coming out. We saw that in the Q3 report when it came out for earnings. Tesla's cost is coming down significantly, and we haven't even seen economies of scale coming out yet for this. That's going to start kicking in as the end of the quarter rolls around. So when we see Q4 numbers coming out, that cost of production should be even lower. And I think here going forward, we're going to be seeing cost of production coming down gradually. Again, we're going to end up seeing a Model Y going through the same exact refresh as well. We haven't even seen that Model 3 Highland kick in over here in the US yet. Looks like they're going to be doing this in Fremont as well. So we should be getting this coming down. Then when we're looking at further down the road cost cutting, we're looking at the compact car is going to be coming out of obviously Mexico. They're going to be starting it in Austin, but it sounds like it's going to be a pre-production car coming out of there just so they can get it finalized and then do actual production coming out of Mexico. But they are also going to be doing this in Berlin, which of course does make a lot of sense because they're going to want that vehicle. And as we've spoken about many times before, having a car of that size over in Europe makes a lot more sense. You see more of those over there than you see of Model 3s and Model Ys. So that car is going to do extremely well over there. So to have it coming out of Berlin only makes sense. So again, long-term shareholders, regardless of what happens with the share price, this is amazing. And if we do end up seeing HSBC being right with a $146 price target and that gap getting filled, in my opinion, not financial advice, but I know personally, I'm going to be loading up much heavier. I've had people asking me what I'm doing with my strategy. I have started adding Tesla back in once it dipped under $200. So for me, I am buying $5 a week. It's a very small amount compared to what I used to do. But again, this macro environment, so many signs are pointing to some very strong uncertainty and a bigger macro pullback. It looks like to me that we may get a big, huge buying opportunity next year, and I want to be ready for that. So there's not going to be anything wrong. I think going down the road, buying at this price is still going to be awesome. But for me, I'm looking at building up my passive income to have even more money coming in to be able to add more when we get to that point. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm going to be doing to play this whole scenario out. And so the next year, if we end up getting that big pullback, I will be able to get myself in there and buy a significant chunk of Tesla stock itself. So if we do dip under $200, I will start adding heavier, especially if I see us kind of moving on that trend downwards some more. I'll maybe add it to $10 a week, maybe 15. I'll let you guys know as we get closer to that point. And if we don't end up pulling down to that level there and the Fed does end up pivoting sooner than expected, or if we never pull below it before the Fed pivots, that will also be my trigger to start adding heavier. So those are my 2 points, under $200 or a Fed pivot. Because again, we do have a lot of awesome catalysts coming for Tesla, but the reality is we still have a very high interest rate environment, which is going to be difficult for the entire automotive market. Tesla, we know, is working on the compact car, but it's not out yet. We know that they are moving prices around. We've seen some prices going up, some prices coming down. There's going to be a lot of that fluctuation still going on over the next year. So realistically, until we get to that point where we have some sort of inclination that the Fed is going to be lowering interest rates, it's going to be a very tough environment for Tesla stock to really take off and run. So as far as I'm concerned, even if we don't get that big pullback, we still have plenty of time to add at these levels. Now, again, I'd love to see us run. I think we could potentially run maybe a little bit on that excitement from the Cybertruck, but we already know the news is there. So now we're not even at like a buy the rumor, sell the news situation. It's just the reality is going to hit when we see the Cybertruck. We want to know the details. We want to know the pricing. We want to know the specs. Those are the pieces we don't fully know yet. Then the next piece is going to be, what is production ramp going to actually look like? Elon's already told us it's going to be super slow. How much of that is actually priced in, or how many people are going to be shocked when all of a sudden production's slow on the Cybertruck and nobody had priced it in? There's still a lot of uncertainty behind all of that. Again, none of that means a difference long term, but in the near term for price movements, that's something that we could potentially see. So that's all I've got for you guys. And again, I apologize for being inconsistent. My son just had his first soccer state game today. They ended up winning. They got a bye for the first round because they were the number 6 seed, and the top 6 teams in the state get a bye. So they got a bye. So they just won their first game today. It was a nail biter. They were down 1-0 and they weren't playing well. They ended up coming back to win 2-1. So now they play again Saturday. And then from there, it's just kind of touch and go. So my life is still very busy. I got back onto my schedule this week for my workouts. So thank you for all the encouragement from all of you guys out there who do follow me over on X and have followed my health and fitness channel as well. It's nice that I've gotten back into it, and I actually lost 5 pounds after hurting my leg and not working out for 2 months. So it was kind of awesome. So I hit my actual goal of 175 pounds, and now I'm starting to lift weights again, start put some muscle back on, and get myself moving again. So there's a lot of things in my life that I'm starting to finally piece together my routine. As you can see, I still have not set up my studio. Working with my roommate on that. I'm going to try to set up a true studio downstairs once we get to that point. But in the meantime, I thank you all for your patience. I'll get on here as much as I possibly can to give you guys the info and share with you guys what I am doing. So you guys are all awesome. Love you guys on here. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support. Have a great one.